Aloha and welcome to another episode of The Gathering. I'm David Ault, wishing you aloha because I am in the beautiful majesty of the island of Maui. I want to let you see for a second. Just continues to nurture in the wind and the sand, the water, the people. And I am just so privileged. I am in deep gratitude for being able to attend a long tradition here, which is the Ram Dass retreat that is always held here at Napili Kai. It hasn't happened in 2 years, obviously because of the global reset, but it's the first retreat after his passing from the physical body. And so what an honor to be in the energy, in the spaciousness of the witness, to just watch the feelings and the emotions around a beloved teacher and then the loss of the beloved teacher and all of the unexpected, unexpressed emotion that can come up, all of the tenderness, all of the community building and the reverence that comes by reviewing and allowing his teachings to come back to us in a fresh perspective. And so I'm in that place, and it's been really good for me. Usually I'm in the space of the teacher, and I am here as a participant. And so I've noticed that I have this sort of identity of teacher mind. Sometimes I have an identity of producer mind, like a producer of a retreat or an event or a spiritual center. I notice all of those types of things that have sometimes strong opinions or sometimes inquisitive nature with regards to, I wonder how they did that and how did this come to be? All of the things that make up sort of the role, the mythos that we play in life, the myth, the archetype, the identities that we are. And it has been perfect for me to step back a little bit and just witness all of that and to do as a wisdom divination card that I pulled that said stand still. Stand still, because in the standing still, the seeming non-activity is just as potent as the doing. And there is a time and place. There is a perfect rhythm. There is an ebb and the flow, as the ocean teaches me. And so I'm seeing how I have really strong ties to particular identities, and that sometimes I have an internal judgment that the standing still isn't necessarily as spiritual or productive or important or valuable. And obviously I'm ready to hear that lesson, to bear witness to that lesson, and to see any kind of resistance that wants to come up. And what do I mean by these roles, these identities? So I was listening to a beautiful, incredible talk by Baba Ram Dass in the pavilion this week. And he expressed it in the form of channels. So we have all of the varying television satellite channels. At the time of the talk, I was thinking that as he was making the joke about cable, that perhaps cable was something relatively new. But you can begin to see the brilliance that sometimes we operate from only a few channels with regards to our habituation and our navigation through the human experience, when what we actually have at our disposal is cable, or now just an endless satellite availability of all different kinds of channels that are constantly happening at the same time. So spiritually, it's always important to think about that. How many channels are we aware of? How many channels do we operate from? How many channels influence our responses, our reactivity to everything that takes place? How many of those channels influence our belief system? And so he was saying that channel 1, let's say, represents the body. And if we are obsessed by channel 1, then all our life will be a reflection of the obsession of that channel. So everything will be about the body. It will be about what is wrong with the body. It will be the toxicity of comparison about the body. It will be the fear of the aging body. We will buy into that comical phrase, anti-aging, when you step back and you consider the spectrum of the multiplicity of channels, and there is no such thing, because this thing has a cycle. And if I am obsessed by preserving this thing in a way that is linked to not a love of the sanctuary of the body, but a fear of death, then I spend the majority of my life just tuning into channel one. Channel one, the channel of the body. You ever, let's say in your family situation, let's say you grow up, you go out and you establish your own life, you come home for holidays and visits, and there are particular family members who can only talk about and have a conversation around channel one. It's all about the body, about this hurt, this operation, this problem. And you can begin to get a sense of how lost or how finite an incarnation can become when all that they can relate to in the world around them is things from channel one. Baba said that channel two is sort of the mythos, the mythology around who we are, the archetype, the identity, the craftsmanship, the creativity. So all of the things that are relatable to titles, the things that we work, the journey of becoming somebody, all of that is contained within sort of channel two. And it's very crowded in there, but it also sort of merges with channel one, because we realized that in order to fulfill all of these identities and these roles and these archetypes and this mythology, that somehow it's tied to the density of this incarnation. And I venture to say that many of us have spent a pretty great deal of time in this incarnation vacillating between channel one and channel two. And what the spiritual path is unveiling, a peeling away. The Hindus would call the veil of Maya, lifting the illusion away from just life as channel one and channel two to the infinite nature of all of these channels. These channels that I would say, from the human perspective, are an attempt to showcase the vastness of what we call the all, or God. And so if all that we do is live from channels one and channel two, then the pain and the suffering and the allegiance to the fear of death or prevention energy, or one of the other terms that I wrote down I loved that he said was the deprivation models that rule our life, can become the end-all be-all. By deprivation model, realizing that when we react to certain things that are showcased or given to us in our life, we react from a place of, how is that thing going to deprive me of what I think that I need? And so a lot of those deprivation models are unspoken. They are unconscious. You and I don't probably wake up every morning consciously fearing death or aging or topics around relevancy or what's going to happen to me, but it is the undercurrent. You can think of it as an illusional foundation that we craft our days, our months, and our remaining years on. But when we start to become aware of and even tune into the frequency of the multiplicity of all of these channels of spirit, we become less concerned about our deprivation models. Why? Because now we are beginning to understand these fundamental spiritual principles. Spiritual principles that I think that you and I are familiar with and spout all the time. We pray, we speak of them intellectually all the time. But they are the principles that tell us that the only reality is God. The only reality is eternality, the eternality of creation or life. And what's fascinating is that we can hear these principles when we are living life from channels 1 and 2, but they don't have any meaning. There is no tangibility to it. There's no applicability to it. There is a yearning. And you know why there is a yearning? Because what we come from is all of those channels. We come from the non-duality where it's just all. Everything is God. Everything is that. We come from that. We are that, actually. There is no other. There is just the multiplicity within the one. But the duality, from the non-dual to the duality, that's what becoming human means. That's what is the agreement about incarnating in flesh, is we come from heaven to the experience of earth, the duality of earth. And there is this veil of forgetfulness, this Maya that descends upon us. Then we incarnate and live through our lives with the opportunity to hear the call to move beyond channels 1 and channel 2. And no matter how we get there, no matter at what age we get there, it's not about that. It isn't about when or the how even. It is the inevitability of getting there. And that's also something that's very sweet and beautiful to me, is that everybody wins. We may not have that experience in the form of this incarnation. So there are many people who live their entire life in channels 1 and channel 2. But they will return to the one because they are a part of the one. They cannot not be. That's the incredible part of incarnation. It's like, I'll just keep doing it until I remember. I'll just keep doing it until I expand to more channels. And so now that I know that, and now that I have a taste of it, just a taste of it, how do I want to spend the rest of my days? How do I want to spend the rest of my waking hours, the way in which I walk, the way in which I engage, the way in which I work, the things that I focus on? What is in the hierarchy of my value system as this being called David? How do I want to give my time and my talent and my treasure to? Knowing that there is this continuance and this expansion, that there is no deprivation model unless I have an allegiance to it. There is no deprivation model unless that's the channel that I'm constantly tuning into. And you can begin to now get a glimpse of what it means to be of service, but to be of service consciously. Not to meet need with regards to needing something back. That is a form of a deprivation model. But it is about living and serving in the world and bringing integrity to that principle that God is all that there is. This is the thing that is just front and center for me. And right now, the thing that interests me the most, the thing that I want to teach about, the thing that I want to learn from. And that's the paradox about teaching it, is that we can't teach it unless we are willing to also live in it. Because otherwise, then it's just noise. And so I am choosing moment by moment, day by day, to keep broadening the awareness of the channels that are out there. About looking at my own deprivation models, I was sensing them here because my beloved has been coming to these for many years now, and he's also come on a number of private retreats with Ram Dass himself over the years. It's where he had his awakening. This is a very sacred, holy place for him. And I could feel a little bit of the idea of being an outsider, like, oh, these aren't my people, or that which is the extreme introvert within me, and it's in here. That's another identity. Um, would find it easier to just hold back or isolate. And all of this has been fodder to play with, to realize that, hey, there's something beyond this channel of the identity that says you're this and you're this and you're this. And it's good. It's good and very good to go to a new event, a new place, a new atmosphere where no one knows you. To notice the way in which the ego wants to say, but, and to just listen and to just be the witness. And so what that does in terms of a deprivation model, what that does in terms of expanding the channels, is that it's easy to think that you have sort of arrived in the work that you do, the karma yoga, your service to the world, if you stay in the same channels, in the same lane, in the same even spiritual communities, in the same traditions and methods. But it isn't until you step out of that. And believe me, this is very gracious for me because it couldn't be nothing but love here. So I chose a really gentle expansion point. But imagine going to a place where no one knows you, a place where your titles and your career and your achievements mean nothing, and to notice the activity of the ego that wants to sort of say, but here, and it's like we're giving energetic calling cards out all of the time. And so for me, the card that I picked about standing still is about understand the value of what one can learn in the activity of standing still, of being the witness, not always operating from the same channels. So mix it up. Mix it up for you. What does that mean? Notice how stale methods can become. One of my favorite things that really shifted and impacted me deeply during COVID was hearing Ram Dass say that all traditions and spiritual practices are traps. And that was not a demeaning statement with regards to the traditions and the practices. It wasn't a demeaning slam at them at all. It was an incredible truth. He said they're all traps, and yet you must go into the trap. You must experience the religion, the spiritual path, the practice. You must experience them so that you can get to a place, perhaps a place of something stagnant, a place of some maybe divine discontent, where you can then and only then begin to entertain what is beyond that. Another example of the multiplicity of the channels. And so that's where I'm at in my life. I've spent decades in a particular method, a particular ideology, a particular lane. And as I went into that, and as going into that shifted and changed and altered my being profoundly, I began to see and began to get to a place where I was willing to go into the beyond. What is beyond that? And it is there that I have been teaching and studying of late. It is there that the question, how do I bring integrity to the spiritual principle that God is all that there is? How do I bring integrity to that in a world that is seemingly so divisive, so almost beyond repair and hopeless? How can I know and be authentic with the teaching that it's all perfect? How can I not be concerned around dancing around the principle, but know the principle to actually walk into the storm, if you will, to see and realize that there is something beyond the storm. And that's where I'm at. That's where I'm hungry. That's where I want to teach from. That's where I want to experiment and to live from. And so I had to go through all of those traditions and all of those spiritual practices and methods in order to arrive where I am at right now. In order to get to a place where I thought, oh, I thought there were more channels. I thought that I was really good and willing at changing those channels. But now I realize that I had even created a finite structure around that, and that there's even more. So it becomes the beyond and the beyond and the beyond and the beyond. And one of the ways that I learn swiftly is to face my deprivation model. To look at, I don't belong here, or I wonder what's going to happen to me, or I have a fear around supply, or I have a fear around aging, around death. I didn't even know that that was there at this particular level or magnitude. I have a certain latching and gripping tightly to a particular nostalgia about the way things were. All of those things fall under the category of some type of deprivation. Being deprived of what is familiar. But I have to go into the deprivation. I have to go into to see the trap and to begin to entertain what is beyond that. So nothing is wrong, and everything is a helpmate if we can allow it to be so. And so for today's message, I believe that the takeaway is to entertain the infinite nature of the channels. Are you simply living? Are you existing on a familiar channel of 1 and 2? Where are you with regards to the fear of death, knowing that the fear of death is so prevalent and so insidiously woven into all of the content of channels 1 and channel 2? Do you want to go beyond that? Perhaps you don't. But if you do, then the best way to start is to put this request, this intention, into the all that says, show me what is mine to do. Teach me. Bring to me that which is my next teacher, that which is my next evolution of exploration. All that is a divine request. And don't underestimate the potency of that divine request. Because what I've noticed from conversations and people and students and all the other places that I've been teaching is there is a continual why or how. Why? Why is it this way? How? What do I do about it? Why? How? Why? How? And in the why and the how, there isn't a silence to listen to the answer. And so start to entertain asking simply, what is mine to do? Show me. And to pay attention, to journal in the stillness of the meditation, in the willingness to turn off channels 1 and channel 2 just for a little bit. You can begin to get a sense of what is yours, what is next, what feels right. You can let go of the idea that there's a right or wrong choice. That in and of itself becomes another deprivation model. What happens if I make the wrong choice? There is no wrong choice. You go into, the obstacle is the path. Remember that. Expand your channels. Expand your channels. Much love. Aloha. I'll talk to you next time.